career and professional identity after you have a baby. I know this is controversial. This is hard to hear in a very feminist, woke society where even sometimes just speaking this stuff out loud really helps you. I think the anxiety came because at my core, I felt like I was not aligned with my values, just having tears in my eyes and crying because I was like, I'm missing all of this. Hello, you guys. Welcome back to the Confident Parenting Podcast. My name is Julie, and I'm still freezing here in March in Austin, but I think it's just me. So if you're watching me on video, I have my trusty cup of tea, which I don't know if I'm going to drink very much of, but it is keeping my hands nice and warm. So, and tea is my comfort, you know? And I really wanted to bring the teacup vibe today because I want to talk about something that I think a lot of women, moms struggle with, and that is career and professional identity after you have a baby. And this was really inspired by a coaching call that I led inside of Jess Hover's coaching program. I will link all her details down below if you don't know who she is. Go and follow her on YouTube and Instagram. She owns the Very Good Mothers Club, and she curates these incredible coaching intensives where we bring moms together and talk about things that they are struggling with. And this was a topic that came up that I feel like all of us in the group, the coaches included, myself included, can relate to in terms of you have a career, you're on one path, and then you have a baby and you're facing a crossroads. So I wanted to unpack this very nuanced topic. I'm very passionate about it. If you can't tell right now, you'll be able to tell by the end, but it's something that's very close to my heart and something I still struggle with. I don't really have the answer. It's so unique to everybody's situation. But my hope is that through having this conversation on the podcast, more people can understand and learn the struggles that we all go through and feel less alone. And even sometimes just speaking this stuff out loud really helps you to feel more connected and more empowered and make decisions towards what you're planning to do next, you know, and things don't have to be static. So let's start at the beginning. If you're not familiar with my story, I'm going to try and keep it brief because you probably heard it before, but I have 3 children now. But at the time when I had my first son, I was working full-time in a hospital in New York, and it's a very inflexible situation in a lot of ways. They tried their best, and I will say, given the circumstances, they accommodated for therapists to go part-time. They allowed people to have sort of longer maternity leaves than was kind of average. Even if you didn't get paid, your job would still be protected, which was amazing. I feel like they really did try, but you know, it's the system also that makes it very difficult to mesh some of the values in motherhood that I believe are really important. So I went back to work after my first baby. I was fortunate enough to go back part-time. So I did 2 long days, like 10-hour days. And if you are a working mom, you know that every second counts. You know, I would factor in the commute time. I'm going to be gone for 11 hours or 11 and a half hours. And I'll be away from my baby for this long. And I was in such denial that I didn't have any childcare lined up until maybe the day before I had to return to work. And I thought, well, maybe if I don't have an option, then I won't have to go back. I mean, I was insane. Obviously, they were expecting me back. They've got patients booked for me, the whole thing. And I'd agreed to this, but it's just so interesting. I remember being pregnant and thinking I would just return to work as normal. We'd figure it out, you know, he would go to daycare or we'd have a nanny or something. And then even being on maternity leave, meeting with one of the supervisors and asking like, what are my options? And just feeling like, I don't really have a lot of options besides quit my job. I was able to work part-time, which was great. The problem with that is obviously, you know, you're very much just kind of going through the motions. It's very hard in a career that is designed to be full-time and that is set up that way to progress in any shape or form. So then it's this question of like, I'm just going in there, I'm just clocking in my time, I'm just making money to pay for my nanny, essentially. That's kind of how my job panned out, unfortunately. And it's such a hard thing. And then I had my second child, and during that time we were working on a big project, and that role, if I wanted to do it, required me to go back to work full time. And so when she was about I went back to work when she was 6 months old, and when she was 9 months old, I went back to work full time, and I wanted to kind of see if I could do it. Turns out I couldn't. I did do it for 2 years or something like that, or close to that. And it was really hard. And I feel like I missed out a lot on her babyhood. You know, I don't really remember potty training her. I don't really know. I know we had issues with her sleeping, and I remember us both kind of cracking when she was about 13, 14 months old and being like, we need to do something about this. We're both not sleeping. We're both working a lot. My husband was traveling a lot. It was intense. We had obviously another child. So we had a baby or a toddler, 14-month-old, and then an older one. It was a lot. And it just, for me, I really struggled with a number of things. But one of the things was feeling like I could never do each of those things, like parenting or work, properly. Because obviously I'm coming into work with the paradigm of not having had to work with a baby before, like being childless before, and having the free time, the flexibility to stay a bit later if I wanted to, or to join the social events that they had, or to accept bigger projects or additional projects that you didn't have to do, but it's good. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. It's like good thing for your career. There's that. And also being surrounded by a lot of really driven, ambitious people, which is a great environment to be in, but makes you feel very inadequate when you don't feel like you can give up. Contrast that, take that same fiery, ambitious energy and try and apply that to being a parent for the first time, where you kind of want to do everything right, perfect, to the best of your ability. You want to succeed. You want your children to turn out to be a success, whatever that is in your mind. And so I was super, super conflicted all the time. I felt guilty all the time. It was rough. And a lot of people kind of get through that. And I think if you can get through that in the early period of your children's lives, once they get a bit older, you can kind of go back maybe to being a bit like you were before you had kids in a working sense. But I just think it's incredibly hard to focus on work 100% and still want to be 100% a mom. Like, something has to give in that situation. And I think as I got older and as I got more into parenthood, and then we had another baby, I think the anxiety came because at my core, I felt like I was not aligned with my values. And in this sense, I really felt that me as the mom needed to be raising my children most of the time. And, when I was working part-time, that wasn't too bad. I mean, I was away from my child 2 days a week. It's not terrible. And, a lot of people would kill for that flexibility. I will say I didn't make any money because I literally just paid the nanny. So that's another piece of the puzzle of like, I'm just working for someone else to look after my children. And the irony was, this nanny that I had a 2-year-old at home. So she had to get someone to watch him. I don't know who she ended up. I think maybe she switched off with her husband, or she ended up having to get someone else to look after her son so she could look after mine. I mean, it's just like kind of crazy. And it's such a tough situation. So that was okay. And I think maybe had I not had an opportunity at work to work on a project that I found exciting, it like diversified my clinical practice. It was a really good opportunity. It was a cool opportunity. It was something we hadn't done before. Had that not come along and I'd maybe just kept on trucking along twice a week, which some of the other moms, they were a bit older than me, but they were doing that, and they had been doing that for many years. And it was a way for them to stay connected to the profession and still be home with their kids 75% of the time. Had an opportunity not come up where I had to work full time or not do it, maybe I would have kept up with it for longer. But I think once I decided to just try the full-time thing, because a lot of the moms were doing full-time, and there are benefits to it. First of all, you make more money, but then you have to pay for more childcare. So I was kind of in the same situation, but our healthcare was a lot more affordable because I was working in a hospital and that was through me. So we saved money like that. It's also just being part of the team, being there every day. It's the social aspect of work, feeling like I'm doing something productive. Everything was kind of, we're just trucking along. I'm like feeling nervous, but anxious, having dreams about not getting to work on time. That was a big stress for me because we had to clock in, and they know when you're not there, and they know when you're late, and I want to be there on time, or 5 minutes early or 10 minutes early, get myself settled. That would be the ideal situation. When you're leaving babies at home and you're trying to get ready in the morning and you want to spend every moment with them and you feel so incredibly guilty and you've had a terrible night and you've been up 3 or 4 times that night, it's like not always possible. So I used to have these dreams about showing up at work in the wrong location and trying to log in and couldn't get into my computer. And like, oh, terrible. So it was just a very anxious time for me. And then COVID hit. And that was like, wowza. We had the opportunity to kind of work from home, but that's not really how our work works. It doesn't really work that way. We need to be in person with people. And I was like, okay, this is okay. Like I get to stay home a bit more. I was like 3 days a week at one point, which is incredible. I don't have to commute, which is amazing. But it was still I just didn't sit right with me that my children's babyhood, toddlerhood, childhood was going by and I was not there. I remember I think I went into work later. They allowed us to kind of flex our hours, but we still had to work the day. So I had great hours. I mean, I worked 8 to 4, which is incredible. Like they did everything they could. But I think I flexed my hours till 10 or something. So I'd work 10 to 6, something like that, so that I could go to my daughter's Halloween parade thing that they have. Because this is the other thing. School is like not really set up for working parents. You miss so much, or at least it feels like that, because they invite the parents to come over all the time to school, and then you miss all of it. And I hate that FOMO feeling, I remember going to her school and she was dressed as Sky from Paw Patrol, and she wouldn't have been 2 yet. And just crying at the like they had a little like event, not a ceremony, but we were in the hall and they had the little kids stand up and sort of do a little parade. And I remember just having tears in my eyes and crying, because I was like, I'm missing all of this. I'm so happy to be here. And yet I still now have to go to work an 8-hour day. I'm going to get home at like 7 p.m. They're going to be ready for bed or in bed. I'm exhausted. I haven't done the mothering thing. It's just a lot. It's just a lot. And then eventually I resigned during COVID. We had decided we were going to move anyway at some point. We didn't know when. And right after I resigned, I got pregnant with my 3rd child. And so I never had to do that return to work thing with her, which is incredible. And definitely allowed me to be more present with her and be there for every step of the way. But I still have guilt about my middle child, and I hope she forgives me. Growing up, I did the best I could, and I just had to see for myself how I could make these things work and how I could try and marry career and raising children in the way I wanted to, which was to be there for them, with the idea that perhaps I will go back to my former career at some point. I don't think it's ever going to give me the flexibility that I want. And I think if my family circumstances were different, maybe. And so if that's you, where you maybe have extended family that are willing, that actually want to help you look after your kids, or they will be able to drop off here and there, or pick up here and there, or look after them for a weekend, but maybe for an afternoon, and you can let your children spend time with family. I think that also really helps, because at least then they're getting that bonding time. And I do think as human beings, we're supposed to be in a tribal kind of situation. So you are supposed to learn and spend time with your aunt and your cousin and your grandma and your uncle, and learn from different things, as long as it's not a dodgy uncle. I didn't really have that because we don't live close to family. So any help I had would have to be paid help. And it's just, there's something about that, not even the money exchanging, the fact that they're not family and they're just not invested in the same way as you would be, that I found really hard. Also, growing up, my mom stayed at home most of the time. She did work on and off, but she was primarily at home, especially after my sister was born. So I had that model and kind of that drummed into the back of my head. And at the end of the day, I'm a control freak. I'm a type A personality, and I want to raise my children the way I want to raise my children. So that doesn't really marry well with a traditional work schedule. And never mind if you work as a lawyer or an architect or a doctor or a banker, finance, or something like that, where you are required to put in the sweat equity. You do not have shift work. You work until it is done, and then you still work at home, and then you travel. Like, it is incredibly hard to marry intentional children and child raising and being there for your children It's incredibly hard to do that with those kind of high level jobs that they require an intense amount of your time and energy, and then you have nothing left for your children. And it's such a hard, sticky subject because I empathize so much with the mom that needs to work. We left New York because it was so expensive, and we wanted to at least try and see if we could manage on one income. And we've made a lot of sacrifices. I've made a lot of sacrifices. I gave up my career that I'd worked very hard for, that I had a lot of experience in. I was on the cusp where I probably could get a good job in an area that I wanted. And now I'm like, I haven't been working for 4 years or whatever. So no one's going to want to hire me kind of thing. I mean, I think if I really pursued it and I started at the bottom, I could, but it's not always the case for everybody, and women get really penalized when they stay home with their children. And it's such a tough thing because how does society function when there are not supported mothers? We want to raise up children that become adults that are, stable, functional, contribute to society, healthy, all of these things. And yet we don't support moms. We, normalize daycare, institutionalized care. We normalize women working at the cost of their children. And it's just something that's never sat well with me. And now the guy's blowing, the wind blowing. Great. Time for a break. Okay, the guy is still leaf blowing over there, but hopefully you can't hear it. Hopefully the mic is not picking it up. I think he's done. Anyway, so all's to say, I ended up resigning from my job, and it felt incredible in the beginning. And as the years have gone by, there have definitely been elements of me missing my job, my career. But one thing that is interesting is that I've continued to walk with this shame a little bit, I would say, when people have asked me, like, what do you do? Or do you work? Because everybody assumes that I work or have worked or whatever. And it's hard when you have to say, I stay home with my kids. It can be challenging to really empower that. And I think it's a me problem. I think it's a deep people-pleasing element of me and just wanting to show people, I have a brain and I have skills and I'm hardworking and I've done all of these things. I think it's a part of me that wants to prove to people that I'm capable and I'm not just a mom. And I hope, and I think I'm on this trajectory, but I hope that I look back and be like, I'm so proud of me that I did that. It was really hard. I tried to resign 3 times. It was incredibly hard for me to do it because you get stuck in the golden handcuffs, so to speak. You are, in this system. You don't want to let all these people down. You have a place, a home, a social group, friends, all of the things that work can give you when it's going well. And it was tough. It was really tough. And I think if we hadn't left New York, I don't know what I would have done. Maybe I would have gone back. I probably would have gone back because if they were desperate enough for people, they might have contacted me. Now they're not desperate. But if in the beginning, they're trying to find people, they obviously want to hire people that they know and trust and like. So I probably could have been like, I made a terrible mistake. I'm ready to come back now. My baby is, at school and etc. So I do wonder about that sometimes, but I also don't know if that was really what I'm meant to do, if that's really my truth. Anyway, I know this is a lot of rambling, so I appreciate you if you're still listening. Being a mom, raising children, I'm going to tell you this. It is an incredibly important role and job, and it cannot be done part-time. It cannot be done just zooming in and out. It cannot just be parenting on your schedule. You're parenting on their schedule and what they need, and they're going to make it so that you notice them. And if you don't notice them, things are going to go madly wrong. And I just worry that we have put so much emphasis on women working during their maternal, motherly years and, ascending the career ladder, and we've made life very expensive, so people feel like they have to work. We don't put emphasis on trying to downsize or live smaller or find jobs and be entrepreneurial in ways that are more flexible. It's very hard to do that. If you're not so inclined, you probably gonna not want to try and start a small business. That's that's a lot of work as well. But this is why there's such a push now for people to work for themselves, or to have Etsy shops, or work on social media, or, take the hit and just stay home with their kids, because they're recognizing once you have that baby, it's not anything like you've ever experienced before. And yes, I mean, I hear moms say that they want to return to work and that it's easier. I hear that. And then I'm also like, if that wasn't the case, if you didn't have to return to work, like say your job was protected for 3 years per kid, or it's easy to get another job again, it's like not a big deal, or you just get paid to stay at home and look after your child, wouldn't you rather do that? Like at the end of the day, if you've decided to become a parent and you're a good parent and you're invested, there's some element of biology that's going to make you want to stay with your child, and not to say that you can't have help. Yes, you should. And we are designed to raise children in a community. Absolutely, you can share the parenting for sure. But when you are gone most of the time, when they're awake and someone else is taking care of them, how much quantity of time are you spending with them? Because we focus a lot, at least I did, as a working mom, it was about quality time. Okay, I'm going to spend lots of quality time. I'm going to do things with them that are amazing because I'm not there all the time. But how much of parenting is the mundanity of brushing their teeth, or just being around while they play, or reading them a story at night, or nothing, or helping them get dressed, like nothing mind-blowing, being there when they come home from school, going to school events, or going on field trips occasionally, or watching them at sport. When you have a typical job, that is incredibly hard to do, because usually jobs are 8 to 4, 9 to 5, 10 to 6, something like that, or longer. And all of these school events and school things happen in the middle of the day, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 2 p.m., heaven forbid. That's halfway through someone's normal workday and kids are out of school already. How are you supposed to marry those two things? It's just society doesn't really support you. So I feel very lucky, even though it's really hard. It's probably harder than working for sure. It's definitely harder than working without children, that's for sure. I feel very lucky to be able to be at home and to see how this goes. I don't know if I'll be able to stay at home forever, but at least I've gotten through that early phase of my kids' lives. My oldest child is 9 already. He's not even in early childhood anymore. It's kind of wild. And then my little one is 3.5, nearly 4. She's more like 3 3/4. So we've gotten through those first critical 3 years. We've potty trained, we've breastfed, we've sleep trained, we've done all the things. And we're kind of set up that if I needed to go back to work for financial reasons, and I needed a steady paycheck rather, let's say that, a very predictable income, I could probably make it work. But I would still need an au pair or a nanny or some kind of babysitter to help me with picking up from school and after school activities. And, because it's just going back to work is like having another whole child outside of the home, It's not easy. Anyway, all's to say that you have to make the right decision for you. I think I have the perspective now that a job is a job. And yes, you can have amazing jobs and setups. There's nothing to say that you can't have that again. Whereas your child is your child at this age once. Even if you have another child, it is this age, and they deserve you to be around as much as you can manage. And they deserve you to be their primary caregiver or close to it. Dads bring on different elements, but a mom is a mom and like irreplaceable. A maternal figure is irreplaceable in a child's life. So figure out how you can get creative with your career. I think if I had to do it again, I probably would have stopped after my first child, maybe not gone back at all, or maybe just stayed doing the part-time thing, even though it wasn't like the most fulfilling experience and I just felt like I was paying the nanny. So in that perspective, I almost feel like if I could have afforded to, I would have just stayed at home, had my children, got them to a certain age where the youngest one is going to school, and then considered my options. Probably during that time, finding other things that I can do to make money, to stimulate me creatively, to keep me kind of young at heart and learning and engaged, because I think that is important too. But going into parenting when you have a high high-flying career and thinking that it's not going to change anything is just naive. And you're going to be so disappointed because you're going to want to do what's best for your children. Is like really, I just don't know. I struggle when people say that they love their career more than children, more than their kids. I've never found anyone actually say that to me, but I mean, your actions speak loudly. And if you're putting all this emphasis on career and progression and you're not happy with who is looking after your children at home, or you want to be the one to do it, take a look and see how you can get creative about it, because you can always get another job. I know this was me. We get stuck in that tunnel thinking that this is the only job for us. In reality, this is the only child for us. This is another human being that needs you to be there for them. And only you are their mother. Whereas a job, you're replaceable. You don't think you're replaceable. They try and make you feel like you're not replaceable, but you're replaceable. If it's your company, maybe there's a way that you can outsource absolutely everything except the stuff you absolutely have to do. Because yes, it's messy. It's not going to be clean cut all the time. You might have started an amazing business that's doing incredibly well and then find out you're pregnant. What are you supposed to do? I'm not saying you have to give up all of that stuff. You need things for yourself, but try and prioritize your kids when they're little, especially until they're a bit more independent, going to school, or you have help in some other way. And I don't think you'll regret that decision. Anyway, let me know what you think. I know this is controversial. This is hard to hear in a very feminist, woke society where we have kind of like gone the opposite direction to traditional gender roles and how we raise kids. And I do recognize how expensive life is. And this is why I don't live in New York anymore. I left all my friends. I left my community. We lived in New York for 11 years. It was a big change and I was ready to go. Don't get me wrong. No one forced me to leave. But looking back, I gave up a lot and I don't regret it, because I hope that my children will grow up, well adjusted. And if they don't, I did everything that I could. I don't think I would be able to sleep well at night, sit with myself and feel good about a decision that doesn't prioritize them. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. But yeah, let me know what you think. Make sure you subscribe down below. If you're watching this on YouTube, follow on Spotify. Give this video a like if you want to do more deep dives into controversial topics. And I will see you in my next video. Bye.